Boom! It's me, God's comic Brad Stein, and you are on Brad Stein Has Issues, where comedy, conservatism, and Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity, and it doesn't get any more clarifying than this. We have A.J. Rice on today. This is a very special guest, a guest that has written books and is a very well-known conservative commentator. He's got a brand new book out, and you are going to want to read it. It's important, it's powerful, it's dealing with all the issues that we have dealt with as Americans. Wyatt, look at the board. What does it say for our next guest?
Give me a second, because it's way too dark for me to see right now.
Okay, just go over there. It's on our board. Here's what happens, folks. We have a board of all of our upcoming guests, and the next guest, I just want to double check that my son is aware, because oftentimes he isn't. Who is it?
It is Father Calvin Robinson. Is it the next guest after this one?
No, I said this guest tonight.
Oh, this one.
Mm-hmm.
You mean the one you literally just said the name
Yeah,
of? So I would have no reason of
Yeah,
thinking you want
just
me
want to make sure.
it?
Yeah. Who is it?
A.J. Rice.
I know. See, that's my point, folks. If you are brand new to Brad Stein Has Issues, you might ask yourself, why does he have issues? And the problem is because my son. Now, he is the producer, the director, and the sidekick of Brad Stein Has Issues. And yet, sometimes he's not quite sure who the next guest is. So I mentioned the guest. Then I said, now, who's the next guest? And he gave us next week's guest.
Yeah, because you already said the answer to that question, so I didn't think you were asking that question.
I think when you said, I didn't think, you could have stopped there.
Yeah, but I did think.
You didn't
You just gave me the wrong information.
You said, I didn't think. I didn't think. Boom, 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 boom. And that's the most clarifying thing you could have said.
Yeah, but until you realize that the rest of that sentence makes the context way different.
Well, anyways, here's the point. My son's name is Wyatt Leroy Stein. And Wyatt, it is December. It is 2024. We are wrapping up Brad Stein Has Issues. And I think, son, when I start looking at the amount of times that we have done this show, I saw some stuff from 2020. Now, that would have meant probably mid-2020, probably around March, April, during the cult of Corona, when I first started this podcast. And I didn't know at the time when I started it was going to be a podcast. It was just me on Facebook saying, anybody out there, I'm bored and scared. So I talked and people listened, and here we are. It's your fault, folks, that I have issues, because I didn't expect anybody to pay attention. But they did. So anyways, I just realized it's almost 5 years that we've kind of done Brad Stein Has Issues. You weren't there in the beginning. It wasn't in our studio. It wasn't with a good mic. It was always going wrong, always messed up. But here we are. We fought the good fight, and now we're moving into 2025, and it's going to be a brand new Brad Stein Has Issues. Wyatt, if you were to just think about ideas and things you would love to bring to next year, to the new, upgraded, testosterone-filled, powerful podcast that changes lives, even when people don't watch, they just get it by osmosis. Anybody that watches Brad Stein Has Issues and walks past people, their shadow inculcates these people with inspiration. What would be something that, if you were just off the cuff, think would be fun things to add to Brad Stein Has Issues 2025 version, the upgraded version? What would you think would be some good ideas? Anything?
We could have a word of the day.
Yeah.
We can do that.
What would the word of the day consist of?
Cantaloupe.
Yeah.
That'd be the word of the day.
Okay, so let's just pretend it's 2025. Hey, Wyatt. So welcome to 2025. What an exciting new year. Listen, I do need to tell you, the word of the day, that's one of our fun little episodes we like to add to each episode, this little sketchy thing that everybody has such fun with. So remember, the word of the day is cantaloupe, which means what?
It's a fruit. Actually, to be more specific, I think it's a melon. Though it could also be a berry, because it's kind of iffy on how those round things are. Aren't watermelons berries? I think watermelons are berries. Yeah.
So this
has been your word of the day.
Yeah. This essentially gives us a good taste of what the word of the day will consist of, and that will be me bringing it up and you just kind of talking about it in obsequious, odd ways, that have no redemptive qualities, no learning capability, nothing that.
No, I mean, and it's going to be really hard to do it like past the third episode because there's only so many things you can say about cantaloupe.
Right. So are you? So is that another part of the word of the day? Is where you always use the same word?
Well, yeah, it's the word of the day. I mean,
see. So cantaloupe would be throughout every day of 2020.
yeah, it's the word of the day.
Okay, and that's your grandiose idea for
No one's ever done it before, so it must be intuitive.
Okay,
Not
okay.
intuitive. Dang it! If only there was a word that I could think of that could describe something that's unique in a fashion that no one has done before.
Cantaloupe.
Cantaloupe. That's it. It's a real cantaloupe idea.
Or cantaloupian. We could just have derivatives of cantaloupe and
I don't know. That kind of seems like cheating.
does it?
I don't know. It's like, I mean, by that logic, why not have another one be cantaloupes?
Yeah.
Plural.
Yeah.
Technically, that's a different word, but come on.
Or if people fear changing the word of the day, it could be cantaloupe phobia.
Cantaloupophobia. Yeah.
So I see where you're going with this. Yeah, we definitely need to pursue that because, like you said, if we're going to be doing this going into year 5, the last thing we want people to do is grow in watching our episodes or be compelled to watch or to want to share it or be inspired or in any way find these things.
You're telling me you can't be inspired by learning that cantaloupes might or might not be a berry?
I guess you could if you lived in a cave.
Plato's cave or something like that? I mean,
Something like that.
You don't know where our audience is.
But the shadow would simply be an orb that could be either the moon, it could be a globe,
or a berry.
A berry, a large
that's
berry.
That's the point. They won't know, and that's the point.
Yeah. Well, listen, I think we're onto something. And I often wondered why we are not in the top 100 podcasts worldwide, and I think
it's truly a mystery.
I think I'm starting. It's all starting to come together now.
Really?
And it's your insights and your creativity.
Yeah, I mean, top-notch stuff, if I do say so myself.
Well, listen, if
a real cantaloupe of a mind I've got.
You do indeed. And listen, if you ever want to get married and you want to do it traditionally and not unorthodox, then that means you definitely can't elope. Leave it to your dad to actually find
I
an
wish
interest.
you could see the frown on my face that I have to capitulate this to you.
Well, so you're giving me some credit for that one?
Reluctantly.
Okay. Well, listen, you're reluctant. Would you want to get married someday?
Absolutely.
Okay. What do you think? You've never been married that I'm aware of, unless you, well, you can laugh, but I don't know that you didn't pull it off somewhere, that you met some girl in New Jersey, got married, and never let us in on it. And then
have I even ever been to New Jersey?
You've been close. You were in New York, and New York is right adjacent to New.
Never say that name again.
Yeah, for those of you brand new to Brett's son has issues. I made my son drive a little bit in New York. He hates driving in general, so to drive in Manhattan, downtown New York, it was a nightmare. It's PTSD stuff.
It is genuinely one of the worst experiences I've ever been through.
Why? What is it about? And folks, this is not a joke. He hates to drive a car. He's a 28-year-old man, never been married. The reason he's never been married is because if he needed to go to the church to get married, he wouldn't want to because he'd have to drive. What is it about driving that is so, off-putting to you?
It's just how many things you have to be constantly paying attention to. My mind does not work that way. My mind is one single track.
Okay.
That is it. All other lanes are closed for repairs indefinitely.
But Wyatt, if you have a car on a one-lane track, it's about as simple as it gets. You don't have to worry about turning. It's just a bit. Is it an oval track or is it like a straightaway?
No, it's a straight track. But here's the problem. Yes, there's only one thing you have to worry about, but you're forgetting that there's also only one place you can go.
And?
That's not always the place you want to go.
So you just No, I'm serious because this is an odd part of your persona. You just what you don't like switching lanes. You don't
No,
like
no, I don't like switching lanes. I don't like passing. I don't like any of that stuff. Because first and foremost, it's just too much for my ADHD riddled brain to comprehend. It's way too many little idiosyncrasies that have to all match up perfectly.
So like you're overstimulated?
Yes, it's a complete overstimulation.
So
And-
what does it make you feel anxious? Like
Yeah,
what if
absolutely
can I get
anxious.
over? Am I going
Yes,
to run
I am-
into somebody? Is
Yes,
somebody going to
Yes. I
rear end?
ask myself that question hundreds of times each time I drive.
What?
Can I pass now? Is this guy gonna let me? Is the light green? Is it gonna turn green? Can I go when it's green, or are they gonna go anyway? What do I do?
Wow.
Yeah,
That sounds debilitating.
it kind of is. But that's not even the only part. The other reason is because driving involves not only trusting that you are capable of following the rules and doing things safely, it also relies upon hoping other people can.
Yeah.
I know that I will, but I don't technically know that the guy next to me is going to follow suit.
Well, and that's what they taught you when you learned to drive, which is defensive driving. Always assume, and this is the simplest way to drive, White, always assume everybody else is an idiot.
I do, and that makes me even more terrified because I'm driving in a road full of idiots.
Okay? And you would be the
The
same one?
only smart one in a sea of idiocracy.
Okay. So it's like a world of Cantaloupian. Where
It's a cantaloupian future, yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. It used to be dystopian, but we found that Cantaloupian is even
We found something worse. Yeah, we found something worse.
even more gray and dim and grim. Well, listen, Wyatt, I don't know if you know where I was over the week. I was gone for a week. Now, I know,
you were?
Yeah, and you
That's
never,
why it was so quiet.
yeah, you don't notice things like that. You never have. And the part of it is because you are finally finishing up, for last time, your college
Thank
degree.
goodness.
You've got 2 weeks left, and you will be officially finished forever with college. What is it you're studying right now? This final.
Video game programming.
No. But today's this
Oh,
month,
today
this month's class that finishes the development.
it is linear algebra.
Linear algebra, which means what?
So it's basic algebra. It's basically just multiplication and addition.
Okay.
However, instead of it being one equation you do it to, it's an entire two-dimensional matrix of equations.
Okay.
And messing with one can oftentimes mess with other ones.
I see.
So you have to do it in a very specific way.
Okay.
And it requires, again, it only requires basic math, but it requires a lot of it.
Okay.
You will perform addition and multiplication literally hundreds of times to solve basic problems.
Linear calculus.
Algebra.
Linear algebra.
I couldn't survive linear calculus, if that's even a thing.
Is calculus hard?
It can be hard. The basic stuff, like derivatives, are brain dead easy.
Okay.
Integrals are where it kind of gets a bit iffy because it's a lot. There's a lot more ways of doing it, and there's no like uniform method.
Okay.
But overall, it's simple enough.
So you're good at math. You always have. I'm not good at math, son. I don't know if you know this. I can kind of add. I can kind of subtract. I can kind of multiply. I can't do division anymore. I remember learning where you put the like 3 and then you did this thing and that, and there was something like under it, and there was something that went on top.
Yeah. So like 3 divided by like 9.
Yeah, and then there would be something on top somehow that would be the answer, I think. Anyways,
I can teach you.
but
It's
I
easy.
tell you what, I used to kind of be able to do it, and I forgot, and I haven't been able to divide using this calculus or whatever you would call it, this formula, for I don't know, 50 years since I even learned this thing. I don't know how to do it. And I got to tell you something, and it brings up an interesting question, Wyatt. If you're not interested in something, does that mean that your life is in some ways less fulfilling? Do you think that people should? I mean, the more stuff you're interested in, maybe it makes you a more interesting person. Maybe it makes you more educated. Maybe it makes you more informed. Maybe it makes you more available to have more material that you can think about and dissect if you're trying to overcome a problem or a situation.
Or maybe it makes you more annoying. Think about it. Not everything that you're interested in is something the normal person considers to be like.
Okay, good point.
Yeah.
What would you say is the thing that you're interested in a lot of things. What would you say is the thing that you're most interested in that would be the least interesting thing to everyone else? In other words, you have lots of interests, but what would you say is one of the things that you really love, very interested in, that virtually nobody else is interested in?
Asking questions.
What do you mean?
Well, an example would be today. I was talking with my sister about corn syrup.
Okay.
And I asked the question, why is corn the only vegetable you make syrup out of? Because there's other vegetables with sugar content, like carrots.
Okay.
Why doesn't anyone make syrup out of carrots?
Okay.
She didn't answer.
Did she have an? Oh, so are you saying that?
Her answer was hoping I go away.
So what you're saying is you get intrigued by a concept, you bring it up, and the other people either ignore you, roll their eyes, or hang themselves.
Or some combination of the three.
Okay.
It's actually kind of interesting to see.
Well, now what would you say is then different about your father? You have a dad, right?
Maybe. I had to go find him.
Okay. Yeah. Well, he would you say is in that category of checking out when you have an odd question like why do they only make syrup out of corn?
Probably, because I asked the question to him and he's going on a completely different tangent right now.
No, you didn't ask me. You told me this is something you asked your sister who checked
and
out.
And in the process, you heard it.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask you a different question, not about the syrup and the
Okay, so
corn.
what's your question then?
The question is, am I someone who okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, it was too boring. I had to zone out.
Okay. Welcome. So now you know what it feels like to be on the other side. No, listen, the one reason that you and I have a podcast together that you talk to, because you didn't talk at first, you just helped me run it because I didn't.
Oh, I would talk. It just wasn't for commentary. It was to explain why things have gone horribly wrong.
It's true. And you nailed that. The one thing you have perfected is screwing things up.
I mean, some could say it's my passion,
It's your gift.
my gift. I'm talented in breaking things.
Well, and I always joke you about that, but actually, son, you've come a long way. You're really good at some of this stuff, and I'm very excited because soon, and it looks like we're about to hit 2025. At that point, it'll be close to 100 episodes, which is the time we thought would be a great time to turn camera B or C. Do you number our cameras, by the way?
No, but I give them names.
Okay, so which one is the master that that is watching me right now?
Okay, so that one's name is Sam.
Okay.
He likes long walks down the beach, which is ironic because there's no beaches nearby. But
And he has to do it on 3 legs, which is hard because
tripods always have a hard time with walks.
they do. Now, talk to me about the second camera, which is my ISO.
Oh yes.
What's his name?
Randy.
Okay.
Randy's a bit of a shy one. He kind of just sticks in the back. Doesn't really do much.
Okay.
Doesn't even really turn on unless we really need him. And
Okay.
he's kind of reluctant, but
Okay.
we love him all the same.
We do. And our last camera is our silver Black Magic. It was our first camera. We got at a severe discount given to us by Larry Gilbert's the one that told us about it. And we got a great deal. It was our master. It was our only camera for so long. And it has now become the guest's ISO. And it's the only one silver. They're all 3 Black Magics, but it's the only silver one. And its name?
Camera the Third.
Oh.
Yeah, he thinks he's royalty because he was the first one.
And he's arrogant about it.
Oh, absolutely. You could feel the posh atmosphere.
Really?
Whenever he enters the room. Oh, it's so annoying.
I always wondered why it had a cape, but I thought it was maybe just to hide the fact that it's an older alliteration of the cameras, and it was.
He's definitely hiding that he's antiquated by comparison to the other 2 cameras, but
sure.
it also is definitely showing off. Like, come on. You don't name yourself anything the third to not have a little bit of an ego.
Yes, indeed,
You know.
indeed. Well, listen, son, I don't know if you know this, but I was out of town over this past week, and it was a weird one because I do a lot of what they call the simple version is a triangle fare when I'm flying, because it means I'm not just like going like most people when they go somewhere, then they come back from that same place because they're going on vacation or going to visit somebody. So we're going to Dallas, we do our stuff, we come back from Dallas. So it's just a round trip ticket. But if you have a triangle fare, it's because you're going from here to there, but then you got to go somewhere else over here, and then you're heading back home or whatever. So that's what happened. So on Tuesday of last week, so a week ago tomorrow, I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma. When I got there, I performed for a big group of conservatives there in Tulsa, then a board meeting for those folks afterwards. Then that night, I was at a church there and performed for them. Then the next day, I went, I was not in Tulsa, White. I was in Oklahoma City. Funny story. I was in Tulsa, but because I was going to leave from Tulsa and end up in Tulsa, but I had a show in Oklahoma City, so I was going to go into Tulsa. Anyways, I was in Tulsa. The guy that's picking me up, right? I go, I'm here. I'm at the curb. Come on over. So he goes, yeah, man, I don't see you. I was like, well, it's a small airport. It can't be that hard. And he goes, well, let me try again. He comes in, he goes past, he said, I said, listen, I'm right here under the American sign. You should be able to see me. It's very small. But I'm at the, where we pick up our bags. He goes, I don't see you. He said, well, I think you need to come up. You must be on up one or down one. I don't remember, like there's arrivals and departures. Just like yesterday when you picked me up and you went to the wrong spot. So he said, okay, and he switched over and he said, yeah, I'm at the beginning. And I said, well, you should see that white truck right there and you'll see me. I said, I don't see anything that says cabs or anything. Well, there's a bunch of signs, but there is a black truck right in front of me. So I do not see a black truck. And I stopped, White, and it just occurred to me. And I sat there and I said to him, are you in Tulsa? He goes, no, I'm in Oklahoma City. I flew into Tulsa. He's picking me up in Oklahoma City, Wyatt. The guy was at the wrong airport an hour and a half away. I ended up having to rent a car, drive to Oklahoma City. That's when I performed for the conservative group on Wednesday. That's where I performed for the church that night, Wednesday night. Thursday, I performed also for City Elders, which is a great group of Christian folks and businessmen that care about culture in the area. So I performed for them. Then after that, and City Elders, by the way, was in Tulsa. So I had been to the two shows in Oklahoma City, then drove to Tulsa to do that show, then left the next morning, because I had to fly to Houston. And then I got picked up to perform in Missouri City, Texas, and that was for a church Christmas event. A wonderful church, very eclectic. They had blacks, whites, Hispanic. I mean, it was very mixed, very rare, so it was cool. Then I got up the next morning, drove back to Houston, flew back to Tulsa. That night, I performed for a fundraiser. Matter of fact, I got a picture of it. Put that up if you would, Wyatt. I ended up performing that night, Thursday night, for a fundraiser for who they call America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah. So he was there for 9/11. He was the mayor of New York when 9/11 happened, and he was an incredible leader. He helped New Yorkians through that tragedy. He was there to participate in trying to help discover what has happened, where we're going. And he ended up was a lawyer. He ended up being Donald Trump's lawyer when they were suing over election interference for 2020. Well, he ended up getting sued by being told that this was a lie and it was erroneous, and anyways, they bankrupted the man. They took everything he had. So they're literally doing fundraising just to help him get his life back in order. So that's what that was for. It was Jackson Lawmeyer, who is a pastor there in Tulsa, and also is part of Pastors for Trump gatherers, who's worked with Donald Trump and his and Donald Jr. and so forth. So he had Rudy Giuliani in to help him. And so I performed for those guys. So then the next day I fly through Dallas and they get home. So that's where I was. I was there performing for a bunch of conservative Christians for a fundraiser for Rudy Giuliani. So, my life, son, is interesting. I have lots of interesting people that I perform for, that I get to meet, that I get to talk to, that I never would have expected would have been part of my life when I was a young man growing up and graduating from high school in Bremen, Indiana. I didn't know at that time, and I spent most of my life in Southern California, but I didn't know at that time what my life was going to be. I mean, how does anybody know? When you were in high school, Wyatt, getting ready to graduate, did you think to yourself, yeah, this is probably where my life's going to go. I'll bet I'm going to do A, B, and C. Now, you were going to go to college. Did you ever think beyond college? You went to East Tennessee State. Did you think, like, at the time, I'll go there, I'll get my degree, I'll get a job? Maybe that's how you thought. Or did you think that far ahead? Or were you just kind of taking it a step at a time, like, okay, I'm out of high school, now I'm going to college, and we'll just take it a day at a time?
I definitely had a plan for what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like I was hard set on following this plan all the way through. If anything came up that I thought would be more interesting, I'm like, that could be a good way to do it.
Okay.
As long as my end goal gets achieved, I don't really care what path I take to get it.
And your end goal is?
Video game design.
Video game design. And
Programming.
in 2 weeks, son. And you went to college in when? What year did you start?
2015.
Was it?
I think it was, yeah.
So when did you graduate? When did you
I
graduate?
don't have to answer that question.
From high school?
Oh, wasn't it 2015?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it was 2015. I want to go.
So maybe 2016, maybe. Is
Maybe.
when you went to college. Anyways, and then you had to change your major because.
Well, because they said the program was game design. What they failed to mention is game design means game art direction,
Okay.
not game make game.
Okay.
Make game look pretty.
Okay.
Which is not the part I wanted to do.
Yeah. So you're more about building literally the components of the game, its ideas,
So-
its theme, its storytelling, its narrative.
Yeah.
But you didn't want to have to actually draw a dragon.
Well, I would love to draw a dragon. I just can't.
Okay.
Yeah, the two aspects of video games that I really wanted to focus on was the storytelling and the enemy design and like AI and stuff.
You love enemies.
I love anime.
Give me your top 3 best bad guys of all time.
Oh, okay. Let's see. That'd be an easy one.
Okay.
I'd say
Number 3?
number 3 would be the Ant Ion from Warrior World.
Oh.
It is a giant turtle with cannons everywhere that shoots exploding cannonballs.
Why do you love him so much?
Because it looks goofy and also really cool at the same time.
Interesting composite there. Number 2.
Oh, number 2. Oh, I would say number 2 would be the Dark Nut from The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess.
Okay, go on.
It is such a fun fight when you're dealing with them because they're sort of they're kind of the strongest enemy in that game.
Okay.
They got a shield that can block pretty much any frontal attack. They're surprisingly nimble for wearing like 70 pounds of armor, so you can't really. It's really hard to hit them.
Is it a person?
Yeah, it's like a 12-foot tall guy in a full like knight suit.
Dark Knight?
Dark Nut.
Nut.
Yeah. It is theorized that it's just a translation error
Okay.
from Dark Knight that just sort of got stuck.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the name, Dark Nut.
So we are now at your absolute, ultimate,
Yep.
greatest, all around boss, bad guy, whatever you call him, final boss. I don't even know what the term would
Yep.
be. But the one, the only, the pristine, the without any competition, the greatest, in Wyatt's opinion.
The Armored Cannon Beetle from Pikmin 1.
How come?
Because it is the most unique enemy in that game. Every other enemy is defeated in roughly the same way. throw your Pikmin at it, they hit it, it loses health.
Okay.
You try that against this thing, you throw a few Pikmin, it just bounces off of its shell like nothing, and then it just shoots a boulder and half your squad's dead.
Okay.
I love the design so much, and I also love the way you're supposed to fight it, because it's very counterintuitive to how you fight any other enemy in that game. Most of the time, when the enemy attacks, that's when you run away from it. But with this thing, when it attacks, that's your only opportunity to make it vulnerable. And if you miss, and you do not get it, you have lost pretty much everything.
It's sucking in air so it
yeah.
can build a boulder, and you literally have to throw the pigment so that as it's sucking in, it gets lodged in its nostril.
Yeah, which causes it to overheat, so it has to open its shell to vent.
And suddenly it has a raw meat back that you can beat the crap out of.
It is so fun because it's risk reward.
That is
The reward is you kill it. The risk is it kills you.
well. I'll tell you what. That's an interesting analysis of your favorites. I find them interesting. That I'm sure there's some more frightening or scary or
If this
difficult.
was a top 10 list, I'd be here for an hour.
Yeah, but I just like how you kind of knew where to go, that this really matters to you. And in 2 weeks or less thereof, you will be finally finished. You'll have your little degree in computer game design.
And programming.
And
They
programming.
specifically put that in the major. That's why I picked it.
Okay, cool. And you now feel confident that you still have more to learn and grow.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
You
This is
believe
barely
you could
scratching the surface.
You believe you could build a game and create a game from scratch.
I am currently actually working on a little side project just to test out my skills.
Just yours, or are you with somebody else?
No, it's sort of an online tutorial thing that's just meant to help reinforce what you've learned.
Right. And that comes from the school or something you found on
It's
your
something I found completely on my own.
own? Nice.
And it talks about stuff that we haven't touched in the classes.
Well, Wyatt, with Christmas just around the corner, it's a time that reminds us of gifts, gift giving, of thankfulness for God giving us stuff we don't deserve, like Jesus, who is the only way that you could see God, because God is unseeable. He's transcendent. And plus, every time they ever talk about seeing God, it's like, you can't look at me or you will like explode for the most part. So he had to make himself a derivative of himself as a human that could be accessible to us. And that's what Jesus was. But what's cool about Jesus, of course, is he is historically documented. He's like real. He's not a myth. We've talked about this many times on the show. But one of the things that I have discovered, White, and I don't know if you know anybody in this realm, there are some people out there, Christians especially, who are uncomfortable with celebrating Christmas because they believe it's a pagan holiday.
Yeah.
And
I wonder who I know who says this a lot.
I don't know.
Man, I have completely blanked on it.
Well, let's keep it that way so that we don't lose our ability to have dinner.
Especially if they're going to be having their own section coming next year, potentially.
Oh, well.
I mean, that could be something we can do to spice things up next year.
They need their own section. No, I think that's a given. I think that's a guarantee.
Absolutely.
Wyatt, but one of the things that bothered me, and I want to talk about this in just a second, but first I want to show this clip. There's one particular element, and there's many, but one particular element of this is the Christmas tree, is one of the pagan symbols that the pagans used to cut trees down, I guess, and decorate them and whatever, and idolize them, worship them. They were pantheists. Everything's God. So I guess somehow they saw God.
But like, who worships a tree? Are these like
Pagans.
Are these like the predecessors to like hippies, like tree hugger or whatever?
You know what? Yeah, probably, because the hippies do see the world as all one God. This is pantheistic or polytheistic. Everything is God. All things are God, right?
That doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, it doesn't.
That doesn't. How
But
do
you know
you
what?
even justify that?
But faith. Well, because if you.
Everything's a god. Nothing is.
Good point. But I think that's polytheism. Everybody's sort of many gods, right? Pantheism is more about everything is God or derivative of God or an element of God. We're all sort of in this giant godness, and the rock has this, and the sun has the God, and I haven't. We're all like one great brand. But here's what's interesting, and I think you need to be careful about this. Not all of these people are just sort of evil or have some malicious intent. They're actually trying to find God. I'll give them credit for that. And they think there's
how
some.
can you even be malicious with that? If
Well, they
that's
think
your-
it's something beautiful. And you know what? Here's the thing.
like what could you possibly do to ruin that?
Well, what you could do is be wrong about
Fair
what
enough.
you're doing, because what you're doing is, and God talks about this in the Bible, and the Bible is the revelation of reality. So it's crucial to read the Bible because it tells you everything that we do good as humans, everything we do bad, everything that's gone wrong, how to fix it. It's the rule book for reality and for humans. And it does talk about things that God expects from us so that we can have a relationship with Him. But another thing I love about the Bible that no other religious text does that I'm aware of is it's self-correcting. So if somebody says, in the name of Jesus, I'm going to kill you, and people say, see how you Christians, some Christians have used their faith to harm other people. And I say, yeah. But the Bible's self-correcting. It never gave us permission to do that. As a matter of fact, it would say that would be wrong to do that. So the same Bible that admits that we're all sinners also says, and by the way, let me give you a corrective because I know you idiots and you're going to go sideways. So when you do, you'll be able to figure out why this is the wrong way to do it. But I did want to mention the tree because it had something to do with you, son. When you were in high school, you were, I'm going to say this without laughing, but you're going to have to help me with it. You were in marching band.
Oh.
And what? I said I want to do without laughing. Now you're laughing, so it's not making it easy on me to get through this.
Yeah, marching band. What a mistake that was.
No, it was a wonderful time for you. You had a great time. It was fun, wasn't it? In a way? Okay, well, forget about it.
In what way?
Okay, because so it was miserable because
Yes.
you got cold. But you did it. Now you can say you were in a marching band once, and you were like the only drummer they had, or one of them. Or
much,
you had a specific drum. They gave you a kit. Everybody else was the...
Yeah.
Anyway.
Unfortunately, in marching band, unless you play the marimba, you're worthless.
You're mad.
For some reason, the marimba is the crowning achievement of marching band prestige.
Yes. Well, the marimba is the cantaloupe of movable
The
music.
marimba is just the piano, only saddle.
Yes, right. And probably less keys, or maybe more. I don't know much about the marimba.
It wasn't like a piano where like you have fingers you can use. You have to use mallets,
That's right.
but you're still expected to hit like 4 notes at once.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how funny it was seeing them like hold 4 mallets in 2
Yeah,
hands?
it was very funny.
was hilarious.
It looked like a joke you would pull on somebody saying, hey, I got a new instrument, and here's how you do it.
Well, no, it honestly looked like they were trying to cosplay as Wolverine from the X-Men.
Right.
Like it's legit.
With a dulled...
with the world's most pathetic looking claws.
Yes, the least dangerous claws of all time. But
Literally, it looked like the claws had little like hats that were knitted by like the grandmama.
let's talk about Santa Claus right now.
Ooh, nice segue.
Wyatt, I want to show a little talk I did a while ago about what happened when they were raising money for the marching band that you were involved with, what they did to try to do that, and how your dad responded. If you would, son, drop this clip. Just little old me, God's comic, Brad Stein. But I do have a warning. If you're offended by the word Christmas, please do me a favor. Down below, leave your name, address, and telephone number so I can personally bring your medication, your shock paddles, your do-it-yourself lobotomy kit, and your helmet. You know, a number of years ago, when my son was still in high school, I received an email from my son's high school involving a fundraiser. Now, normally I wouldn't admit this in public, but my son was in marching band. Actually, I'm joking. You know, my son's a great drummer, and I'm extremely proud of his gift and his nerdiness. But the reason I'm bringing this up is in that aforementioned email, they said they were selling holiday trees. We better get our order in fast. So I did immediately. I responded and said this, "Excuse me? Holiday trees? Did you mean Christmas trees? Please explain." Brad Stein. Funny, no matter how hard I searched the internet, I couldn't find any reference to a tree being used in December to celebrate Hanukkah, Ramadan, Kwanzaa, or winter solstice. You know why? Because it's a Christmas tree. Listen, if you want to make money off of my religious traditions, the least that can be expected is to dignify it by using it by its name. Either avoid all of what has become representative of Christmas elements like trees, lights, tinsel, garland, gifts, wreaths, Santa, mistletoe, little lifesaver novels, angels, candy canes, sleighs, jingling bells, caroling, and Aunt Ruth's fruitcakes that we've all been gifting for thinking years, and find your own stuff to hawk. Or call it by its rightful name. Listen, whatever your religious or non-religious point of view is, I could care less. But if it comes with the inability to treasure America's Christmas traditions, then it isn't adding a heck of a lot to the American milieu. There are no other religious traditions I'm aware of that have created an environment that includes an idea the entire world can support, the spirit of giving. Maybe we need to test to see what the country would look like without Christmas. I'd love to propose a Christmas-free society this year. Let's let the secularists have December all to themselves, shall we? We must not buy one Christmas gift for anyone this year, but instead give all we had planned to spend to a Christmas charity. There must be no Christmas parades, no Christmas music on the radio, no Christmas tree lighting, no communities putting lights out on their homes and neighborhoods. There can be no vacations for the kids, no paid days off for government workers. Let's let the atheists and the progressives and the secular bullies have what they deserve and what their beliefs create: a dark and cold, meaningless, joyless bunch of December nothing. Let's let the country see what secularism leaves a culture within all its glory or lack thereof. Think of all the beauty left to the world that has been created by those who believed God was inspiring them. Handel's Messiah, for example, Sistine Chapel, and architectural wonders throughout Europe, all dedicated to those inspired by God's gift to humanity, his Son. What are the magnificent masterpieces of art and music that was inspired and dedicated to atheism? How could there be? Atheism worships the material world, believing matter is all there is in regards to reality. How exactly would one craft a sonata gloriously worshiping the molecule? Did secularism bring us art that uplifts us? No, they gave us a crucifix in a jar of urine. They're not even clever enough to use their own images. Instead, they have to borrow from Christian tradition and mock it just to give the illusion they're clever. Here's an image of one of the traditions Christmas gave America to celebrate together. Why would anyone have a problem with this? Here is the secular version. The juxtaposition of a tradition that utilizes light as its display and the darkness that is left if secularists finally rid America of that nasty, foolish idea that God is love and wants to be part of our lives. Metaphor much? Christmas is a gift. If people don't want it, maybe we need to get it in the hands of those that do. Of course, what makes it so beautiful is that when Jesus was given as a gift for humanity, he was spit upon. Nevertheless, he allowed himself to be abused by the unappreciative in order to give them something greater than they could afford. Something they didn't even know that they needed, and yet was given by God to his creation as literally the greatest story in human history. So, even though my nature finds great glee in wanting to withhold it 1 year just to give anti-Christian bigots a taste of what their ideology leaves a culture, and give those people exactly what they deserve, I always end up getting that slap in the face reality from God, who asks that I would continue to give it away humbly and lovingly, knowing full well that many will either abuse it, despise it, or ignore it. This is what Christianity is, and it's also why I'm so bad at it. I wish you all Merry Advent season. And if you have a hard time reading about that, fear not. Your lifesaver novel is in the mail. Happy Advent season. Put a helmet on. Folks, I don't have to tell you this, but I was just attacked by a trombone. Apparently, some of these marching band folks don't take things too kindly to be mocked. Sorry about that. Thank God it wasn't a tuba. Like and subscribe to my channel, or I'll send the piccolo players after you. Also, hit the notification bell, because I'd hate for you to miss out on all the latest craziness I got going. And if you want to watch one of these videos to get through the day, why not? I already made it. You might as well get some use out of it. And it is a true story. It really happened, and I really did send that email, and it didn't get any response, to be honest, and I didn't expect it to. But it did make me think of something that I wanted to throw out to you guys at this Christmas season. So some of you are hearing some folks say that, hey, the Christmas tree was really a pagan tradition, that the pagans used to cut down a tree and they'd bring it into their house and they'd decorate it and they'd worship that tree. And so all we did was steal that tradition and turn it into, in Germany, the Christmas tree. And that's why when you have a Christmas tree, even though you have a star on the top and maybe some angels hanging from the branches, you've fooled yourself. You're still actually worshiping a pagan idol. And so for that, it is a disgrace as a Christ follower to do that. I'm here to say I disagree. Here's what I mean by that. Let's just say that pagans did, in fact, cut down a tree and decide that this tree is God, or I will see God inside of the tree, idolize the tree, put the tree here, and worship the tree. Let's say they did that, and apparently they did. I would say something to you that I don't know that anybody's ever addressed, and that is, whose tree is it? No, really. Whose tree is it in the first place? Because there would be no tree for a pagan to worship if God hadn't invented trees. In other words, at the Garden of Eden, when God had created everything and gave it to his people, Adam and Eve, his creation, he said, these are your trees. As a matter of fact, they're all yours. There is a couple I don't want you to eat from, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and the tree of life. I don't want you to eat from those trees. So he already gave special significance to a couple trees, but the trees were given to man. So my contention is this. If you are a pagan and you decided that God really isn't the God that revealed himself to us in his creation, but in fact, you are part of the pantheistic universe where everything is God, including this tree, and I'm going to worship that tree and make sacrifices to that tree, my contention is this. You stole the tree from God, who gave it to Adam and Eve, who's the lineage of Christ, who's my people. You stole it from us, is my contention. It was never your tree in the first place. And the fact that you subscribed or decided that there's some kind of God within this, that's your crazy, convoluted perspective of the creation. And the Bible even mentions that you worshiped the creation instead of the Creator. So if I, as a Christian, says, you know what? If I see an evergreen tree, it reminds me that it is evergreen, always alive, never to die. Even through the harsh winters, it's alive and vibrant. And I'm going to see that tree as a representative of Christ, who came to earth as man and God, lived a perfect life, died, but rose again, living eternally. And I'm going to decorate it with angels, and I'm going to decorate it with nativity scenes. I'm going to put a star on the top, like the North Star leading to Christ. And I'm going to put beautiful things in it and scripture verses and whatnot. And I want to do that as a remembrance of God. And yes, the pagans tried to steal our trees and our creation, but we're taking it back because it was ours in the first place, saith I. And that we need to understand that whenever I even had a Christmas tree all my life, not once do I recall ever getting down on my knees and praying to or worshiping the tree. The tree really, especially as a kid, was just a great depository for presents that would sit under it, which is all I was looking at anyways, was the stuff under it, because that's what I was there for. So if you say that bringing in a tree because some pagans thousands of years ago did it, that somehow it's a derivative of their belief system and you somehow are subconsciously worshiping evil, then I say, do you bring flowers into your home? You don't think somebody must have worshiped the flowers? I mean, why is the flowers any less powerful than the tree? Do you bring in ferns? Do you bring in any kind of tree or outside plant life into your home? Then you worship it. Clearly you worship it. No, I don't. It's beautiful. Exactly. It reminds us of the beautiful creation of God. And by the way, the Bible is very clear that if meat is sacrificed to idols, you can eat it because the idols are dead. They have no power, they don't speak, and they are not real. You, as a believer in Christ, have redeemed all of this stuff. Eat the meat. It's rare and hard to come by in the first century anyways, because the idol is irrelevant. Oh, but if somebody's weak, if somebody is a milk drinker, if somebody's legalistic and dogmatic, if somebody is so unable to eat meat or watch others eat meat that was sacrificed to an idol, because to them it's degrading them and bringing them low and becoming more idol worshipers than God worshipers, I have to forbid myself from eating that so I don't harm your weak, childlike conscience. Yeah, the Bible actually says you're the weaker brother. You're the problem, and I have to sacrifice my liberties for you because you're a kid, a child, you're immature. You're the worst case scenario of the representative of God. See, that's what God does. He says, I want you to help the weak anyways. Yep, they're the ones on the wrong, but you have to appease their conscience because they can't make it. They're too fragile, and they don't have enough belief in the power of the redemption of Christ, who completed the law, completed it all, and now it's all yours. Not all of it's good. All things are lawful. Not all things are expedient. That's your call. Is it expedient? Does this get me closer to God or less? And after that, God says, feel free. I trust you to be mature, to seek my face, and let the Holy Spirit guide you this day forward. So, I don't care if you have a tree. And if you have one and I walk into your house, to me it just smells good and it's beautiful. And that, to me, is the power of Christianity. It redeems all the pagan junk and returns it to the Eden where God created it for us in the first place. A.J. Rice is our guest. He is a conservative, and he is an important voice right now in what's happening in America. With this election of Donald Trump and his desire to destroy wokeism, we're going to need people like A.J. Rice to speak about these things, as well as all the other people I bring on, and I hope myself as a comic who has been fighting political correctness for over 25 years, long before the other comics were doing it. We have a job to do, and that is to stand for truth unapologetically. And now with this little window he's given us with the 4 years with Donald Trump, pray for him, pray for this administration, and pray that we fight diligently to speak unapologetically of our faith. If you're a pastor, get up there and tell everybody, what is the sexual approval that God gives us? What about marriage? What about divorce? What about loving your neighbor? What about being strong? What does it mean to have an absolute moral, theological, traditional apologetics towards our faith, teaching that without compromise? Excuse me, that's what's going to be necessary. if this nation's going to survive, the pastors becoming warriors and the people becoming disciples. That's what I'm here for. That's what I do in churches. If you have a church that wants to bring me in and bring in comedy, but to encourage discipleship, that's what I'm all about. 2025 is getting close, and you're going to see a whole new, even more, I hope, robust version of Brad Stein Has Issues. And we're going to have better and more interesting guests all the time. I'm shocked and amazed what God has trusted with me and Wyatt. But we're going to move forward because God chooses whoever will simply say this: I'll go. And so I am going into this interview with A.J. Rice. Instead of just wasting time listening to me, let's waste your time listening to both of us. Please welcome A.J. Rice. How do you do, my friend?
Brother Brad, great to be here. I've been excited for this for a while, so let's give the audience what they came for, right? A little interview with a vampire.
Well, you're going to have to lower the bar if you were excited to be on my show. I guess we need to start this conversation with a sobering analysis, and that is, since you're white and I'm white, I think us having a conversation is suspect. It's already racist, but it clearly, I think, exerts a power, a hegemony that we really, I hope, are trying to destroy in the West, so that guys like us of our ilk no longer have power to even be heard in the marketplace. But I think the whole idea of white privilege is an odd framing of a philosophy, because everything about whiteness is evil inherently and systemically racist. Well, then why do we have discussions? Why would you hope that we would be the guys that can come in and help fix it if we are inherently evil? Shouldn't we just get out of the way and let somebody else take over? Tell me about what you think sort of engineered and started this entire sort of focus on whiteness. Tell me where this craziness got launched.
Sure. So this really isn't about skin color. This isn't about melanin in the skin. This is more about philosophy. You were talking about Marx and Engels. The reality is that when you hear these terms, whether it's white privilege or the patriarchy or toxic masculinity and all these sort of nuggets that fit in these sort of archipelago of cultural Marxism, because that's what this is. My job is to, use irreverent humor to illustrate truth, as Limbaugh used to say. Sometimes it's gallows humor. Sometimes it's humor where Brad and I are going to head to the gulag if we tell certain jokes, but we have to connect the dots. So when you hear this term, white privilege, what the left or, sort of the cultural Marxists of the day are talking about is really three things. And those three things are Western civilization, the middle class, and the nuclear family. Now, there are more things. There are things that are inside of those things, but these are the things that have to go. I wasn't on for my first book, The Woking Dead, but the White Privilege album is a sequel to that. One of the things that is a through line through both of them is that if you look at what wokeness is, and I've tried to create a unified theory of wokeness, right? It's hard to do because it's a target-rich environment. But essentially, if you get out the blend tech or like the NutriBullet or one of these blenders, you can put some social justice in there. You can put some identity politics in there, cancel culture, political correctness, of course. But essentially, if you examine cultural Marxism, you have to look at a philosopher that came about 100 years ago in Italy who was studying Marx and Engels. And it had dawned on him, and his name was Antonio Gramsci, that if we were going to get certain types of Marxist revolutions in the West, that if there isn't a royal family to topple or some autocratic regime like Batista in Cuba or some colonial power like Ho Chi Minh and the Kim boys in North Korea did, Mao Zedong did, you're going to need to take off your economic Marxist jerseys and put on a cultural one, right? So the Lakers jersey comes off, the Celtics jersey comes on, and you try it a new way. So what Gramsci was positing was culture is the way to get them, because you're not going to basically hang the capitalists with the rope they manufactured. Wasn't going to happen. They did the long march. So right around World War I, with Sanger, with Wilson, and some of these other characters, they start infecting the levers of the culture. So, Broadway, the silent picture industry, early radio, newspapers, public sector unions, the Democrat Party. And if you follow them over the last 100 years, I mean, these are where the termites and the tapeworms have burrowed in. And today we're fighting a lot of these same people. Sometimes they have protection from big tech. Big tech kind of acts as their force field, although Elon and some of the things that have happened recently have foiled some of their plans for controlling all the kids with the devices, which is the goal. It's TikTok's goal, it's Instagram's goal, it's the goal. Zuckerberg maybe is back down a little bit because he got a little chin music there by looking like a buffoon, believing everything that the FBI and the DOJ. Zuckerberg's the last guy in America that believes the government when they tell him that the laptop from hell is fake. What has happened because of this? Well, you've got a lot of movements that really have come about here in the last decade since the OG from the Golden Escalator showed up. You got the Me Too movement. We could talk a little bit about that. But after, you've got what happened during COVID. You've got Black Lives Matter that was kind of midwifed by Barack Obama, the Trayvon Martin incident, the Ferguson incident, and the Cambridge police acted stupidly incident. People forget about some of that, right? People forget that Occupy Wall Street turned into Antifa, and especially after it got a Soros money injection. So these are these sort of brown shirts. These are the street thugs for cultural Marxism as we are dealing with it right now. And look, political correctness has always been with us. The last time it spun up, when Bill Maher was still on Comedy Central and the Murphy Brown pantsuit mafia all wanted to grow up, Gen X, they wanted to grow up and be Hillary Clinton. Don't say this, don't say that. Is that politically correct? So now we have all of this on steroids. So when you talk about Western Civ, I'm talking about Judeo-Christian, Greco-Roman civilization. Right. So the four legs of the stool. They hate this. They can't stand it. It doesn't matter whether it's, Aristotle or Churchill. All of this stuff has to go. Mark Twain has to go. Hemingway's got to go. Columbus, Mozart, Beethoven, whoever the hell it is, Stanley Kubrick, you pick it. It's got to go, right? So, I mean, if Lenny Bruce and George Carlin and Richard Pryor and Joan were all still alive, hopefully they would be dinging this stuff the way Shane Gillis and Rogan and Chappelle and Ricky Gervais are doing it. Now, a lot of comedians are afraid. We could get into why, but there are some that are out there that are willing to basically push back and just go to the mat for free speech. And they're not exactly, right wing. They're not working at the Heritage Foundation, right? So, I mean, Dave Chappelle's not Ben Carson, right? He's a black Democrat from D.C. But he don't care, because if you tell him you can't joke about something, that's where he's going to go. Yeah. But with Western civilization, especially after George Floyd, the patron saint of fentanyl, as soon as he died, they basically got a green light to try and reset a lot of stuff. And they sped it up. Didn't matter whether there was COVID lockdowns. They hit the reset. They try to reset your community, your school board, and they started tearing down statues. And look, I'm a Philly guy. I'm a northern guy. If the Civil War was happening tomorrow, I would be probably fighting my wife who's from North Carolina, right? I'm not down with the Confederacy. I'd be wearing a Navy uniform like this shirt. But I will tell you, I always knew that they weren't going to stop with Stonewall Jackson and Robert E. Lee and Pickett and Beauregard and Hill and the rest of them. They weren't going to stop there. They didn't, because as soon as they were down, as soon as every school was renamed Michelle Obama Elementary, they came for Grant and they came for Sherman, and they just kept. I mean, they kept coming. They came for Pershing, they came for Patton, they came for MacArthur. They renamed all the bases. Fort Michelle Obama, Naval Base Michelle Obama, and on and on and on. Naval Base Farrakhan and the rest of it. So, you knew that they were going to take. I mean, look, the Queen of England died, and the dopes on The View, who really, I mean, their IQ's off the charts there at The View. They went immediately after the Queen, claiming that she was like the monarch of white supremacy and white privilege. But if you really examine it, a lot of people don't know that England got rid of slavery with an act, with a parliament. They didn't have to go to war with it themselves and lose 600,000 people like we did.
But
But
they lost many sailors who were putting an
they
end to the
then
trade
they started
by actually
pirating.
being on the high seas and stopping these
Correct.
slave trades. So
They sh-
they did
right.
sacrificial things that really don't make any sense outside of the Judeo-Christian foundation, because you have to have this internal
That's right.
morality that drives you. There has to be a transcendent, immutable truth that
That's right.
is more important than life, than existence, than comfort, than happiness, and people that live in what that would be what we used to call virtue, actual virtue, where it was beautiful and it was powerful and it was self-sacrificial. It's as though these people don't exist anymore. The idea that you would give up life, liberty, and sacred honor, you put that at risk, as the founders did, who did pay those prices,
That's
who
right.
literally lost everything. They self-funded some of the Revolutionary War, and it cost them everything. So here's a
Sure.
group of people saying
John
there are
Hancock.
things in life more important than life. Now that
That's right.
kind of a character countenance in a human being is unique. It's something that only is in a particular culture, who have a particular worldview, that you are willing to die for. And that is the ultimate. And of course, Jesus
Right.
said there's no greater love than giving up your life for a brother. But think about that.
Right.
Once I remove the threat of death, you can't stop me, because the only thing you do is kill me, and I don't give a crap. Look at the kamikazes. Once I've made an ideological commitment to my life, you're not going to be able to stop me. So when the things that you're saying to me, and of course, I've been fighting the political correctness for 25 years, long before Chappelle, long before Bill Burr, long before, and I'm not saying I'm even in their category or I'm a great comic. I think comedy's subjective anyways. It's funny or
Sure.
it's not, it's your taste. But for a long time, and here's what I did. Matter of fact, it'll lead to a question that I'd love to get your thoughts about. So I was putting down political correctness because 25, 30 years ago, we heard of the idea of political correctness, and it seemed almost like a novelty, like a silly little burr under the saddle that was creeping into
Sure.
culture. And we kind of put up, oh, people being politically correct, those crazy people.
Right.
And one day I thought to myself, Brad, if you're going to make fun of these guys, you probably should be a little bit more informed, so you really understand what you're dealing with. Don't just be superficial, bumper sticker psychiatry. Figure out what this really
Right.
means. Next thing I know, and it's not a hard discovery if you do a little research, I'm in the Frankfurt School. Next thing I know, I'm in Germany.
Sure.
I'm with the
That's right.
intellectuals. I'm with the Marxists, and I'm going, what? Wait,
Postmodernism.
this is
Yeah.
like
And then,
this
right.
is like legit. This is a
Absolutely.
political movement. This is a
Absolutely.
religious cult-like movement. This
It
is
That's
important.
right.
And they had the temerity to say, and we will wait this out as long as it takes. Now that is a
Absolutely.
religious commitment. And guess what?
Absolutely.
They at this point, honestly, they won. They did it. So here we sit.
Wow.
So let's talk about this idea of what I saw, and it was really came to the fore during the cult of Corona. Self-censorship. In other words,
Yes.
the only way white privilege can work is if I buy your concept and buy into it and self-censor, self-deprecate, self-criticize, because it's
Right.
a BS concept. It's not true. But if I choose to show that I'm a good man and a good human, because I will flagellate to show you how good I actually am.
Right.
You taught me to enslave myself. You become the
That's
slave
right.
master, and I think I've done a good thing. So what do you think within this system has caused what used to be considered a logical person, a somewhat common sense, if that even exists anymore, person, to commit suicide, to commit a cultural suicide, and think that somehow they deserve it? I mean, there's some psychological something here that is so much deeper, and it worked. What hook did they find to get into some of these white leftists to basically destroy everything that their people had created?
And if we go back to what I guess the time period you're talking about, Dan Quayle criticizing Murphy Brown for being pregnant and not telling the audience who the father was, created this chain reaction that that was almost like political correctness, black monolith showing up from 2001, because that then spiraled into the wacky Gen X shows that came later, like Friends and Will and Grace and so on. But hanging around still in the 90s, Married with Children and Roseanne in particular, there was still some Archie Bunkerism on TV, but those shows couldn't exist in their form today. For some reason, South Park and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Curb Your Enthusiasm just ended, but there was jokes that those guys were able to tell that other people couldn't get away with. And, you know, they actually, I've seen stats have a very left-wing sort of following, some of them. South Park is more libertarian, but so and then Bill Maher got fired, obviously, with his 9/11 comments. So then you fast forward to today, and a lot of stuff that was not that long ago cannot exist today. You're talking about self-censorship, how do people being sort of trained to autocorrect. So trickle-down wokeism, you know, especially when it's put out there on a corporate level through DEI and ESG, right? Diversity, equity, inclusion, environmental, social governance. The goal there is to have this sort of intifada, this woke intifada at the middle management level, right? They're in Netflix's parking lot because of Chappelle's trans jokes. They're in Spotify's parking lot because they want Rogan thrown off the air. And some of that hasn't worked, right? It hasn't. Now, what starts to happen is that they want all of us to sign a user agreement to be an American, basically for societal inclusion, almost like the Chinese social credit system, right? So, you know, Stein told a midget joke, Rice told a trans joke, you know, and our credit scores start to go down. So we start to like worry about what everyone's thinking. Now, as an Irish Catholic wise ass from Philadelphia, I've never been like that. But a lot of people want to please because they are being satiated with data that shows them that society writ large cares about this. Why does every show have to have a trans character when there's only 1.2% of 350 million that even think that they're one of the 72 genders, right? So, but that's how they're, in the past, you were talking about the Frankfurt School, in the past, they waited until, you know, I like to say that, you know, it was not until fall break when your college son or daughter came home that they hated their parents, right? That's when they hated their parents. You know, Thanksgiving break, you know, mom and dad, you're part of the patriarchy, you're part of white supremacy, you know, why do we go to NASCAR? Why do we go hunt and fish or whatever the hell it is, right? But now, no longer. Now with trickle-down wokeism, they're trying to capture in kindergarten. They're trying to capture in grade school. And that way you can become a foot soldier for them. And you could go forth, right, and try to reel in society. You know, be fishers of woke men and women. Go out and convert and shame, right? Shun and shame. And that's what they try to do. And that is some of what you're talking about. Because what happens is people self-censor. They autocorrect. Oh, you know, I think Melissa might be 1/16 some Cherokee or something. I might not want to tell my Elizabeth Warren joke, right? So that's what goes on. But I got to be honest with you. If you look at the last 18 months of politics in the United States, and you look at Vivek, our client, you look at RFK Jr., our client, Donald Trump, who we work with his super PAC and his publishing house, who technically our client. We do Don Jr.'s books. And then DeSantis, who we don't work with, but we like. These are all anti-woke guys. These guys floated to the top because, and I think are as powerful as they are and as likable as they are, regardless of party, because they're not buying it. So, I mean, who do you want to roll with? Do you want to roll with Kamala Harris and Tampon Tim and the Cheneys, who and Romney and the McCains and the heroes that were captured and the heroes that weren't captured, that want to censor your language? They want to censor your food. They want to censor everything you're doing, your church. They want to bring Karl Marx into your church and baptize him right in front of you, right? Get some liberation theology. where you've got woke Jesus, transgender Jesus, where there's no real rules? Or do you want to roll with the battleship that is multi-ethnic? It crosses party lines. I mean, we've got Ron Paul people in there. We got some disaffected Bernie people that remember the 16 convention when they stole it from Bernie. I mean, look, we have had 3 nominating processes now in a row on the Democrat side that are all kind of suspect. They were all Rube Goldberg to some degree. So, yeah, Hillary won primaries. She won some against Obama, and then she won some against Bernie. But what happened at that convention where Debbie Wasserman Schultz comes in, and we know this because Donna Brazile told us this in her book, that the superdelegates kind of maneuvered Sanders and his people out of the way. And then 4 years later, during COVID, we've got the reanimated corpse in the basement. He's plugged in with the extension cords, right? And he's the nominee. They decide after South Carolina, Jim Clyburn shows up and says, he's the nominee. That's it. Buttigieg, get out. Elizabeth Warren, the Indian, get out. Everybody get out. Cory Booker, they all get out. Rigged or suspect. And then now, they remove the president of the United States with the 3-card money, and they put this woman in who has never won a primary. So I always told people, there's not some, Barack Obama was, and I didn't vote for him. I made fun of him every day. I still do. But this was a unique figure that there's not some apple orchard somewhere with a bunch of Obamas growing in. So, they're going to have to, piecemeal this thing together because they don't exactly have some deep bench of Aaron Judge and Bryce Harper and all these other. They don't, right? They don't have like Jordan and Kobe sitting on the bench. They do not. So this is what you get now. And
but it's effective. But the point is, so what? They're pulling it off. I mean, this is the thing that's been so, I guess, eye-opening to a degree, because I don't think any of us really, I mean, the greatest thing that Corona did is it exposed things that somehow we had none of us had ever seen. I mean, a guy like you that's really entrenched in the political sphere and the conservative marketplace with your great books and your insights and thoughts on this particular subject. So you kind of know, you probably have connections with people that are on the inner, sanctums of some of these things or whatever, I'm hoping. And yet we got fooled. Like, wait a minute, you telling me that there's a bigger party at play here? There is a machine that runs things worldwide that we didn't know existed. I mean, I don't know if that's naivete, because honestly, brother, I don't know how they can be this good at this. I don't know how they can be this good at stealing an election. You know how hard that feels like it would be to steal an election and put in fake votes, not get caught, not get prosecuted, not be tried for an insurrection. I don't think it'd be treason unless it was connected to a foreign government that had put it. Then that'd be treason if they were trying to undermine my government in cahoots with another government. But they pull it off, and then they use a guy, and for however many years, Biden, we can all just stare at the guy and go, he clearly has some mental deficit. No, he doesn't. And then and here's the thing, you tell me your thought. I think they believe the fantasies they create. I really do. I think they think if I say it, it's true, which is, if you think about what they support, transgenderism, identity politics, if I say I am, then I am. So it's kind of it is kind of an Engels idealism construct. I just create reality out of my thoughts, and then it becomes true. And so if you live that way and you have convinced yourself, I can create reality. Hey, the economy is great. No, it isn't. If I say it isn't, feel like it is, it really is. And are they just so evil that the lie is all they have and they certainly live by lies? Or are they so self-deceived, which to me says there's a spiritual component to this, seriously, a transcendent evil component, because some people in our nation, I'm talking about your average Joe, right, who are voting, and have accepted the left, and of course it's mainly women, leftist women, it's like they've lost the ability to think. It seems impossible for them to be this unaware. Your groceries are, it's $75 to get a couple things of groceries. Your gas is going up. We're cutting our ability to have our own infrastructure, our own ability to have our own gas and energy sources. We're letting people in that have been left from prison. I mean, how can you look at that and not go, clearly this is unsustainable, and to even have a sovereign nation as just a basic precept for, you want to come in, I need to know who you are, what you stand for. Are you going to blend? Are you going to bring the best of your culture, but then you submit that to the big soup, the melting pot, because that's what was expected of you, not abandoning where you came from. This country's great because of so many people from different older cultures brought cool things here. But then they had to be one of us. That house wasn't divided, it was one, and they inculcated themselves into us and said, we want to participate. We need this house to be united. And then they come up with multiculturalism, which is destructive. We are not multicultural. We are e pluribus unum. Yes, we're many, but then we become one. Multicultural says it's all equal. It can't be equal if we have dissenting ideas in competition. It can't work. So I'm kind of going off on a little bit of a rant here, but
You're good.
That's
actually
I'm
what's
sure you
in
are
the book.
too. Yeah, I'm
So,
confused how people can be living in a delusion.
Yeah, not all civilizations are created equal. Not all cultures are created equal. I'm sorry. You might not like that, but it's just the case. And understand this, we are a multi-ethnic country, but we are not a multicultural country. We have one culture here, Western culture. And you can come here and you can participate in it if you come here legally. And that's not to say that, we can't go out on Cinco de Mayo and have a shot of tequila. We have sushi, we have yoga, we go, Guinness on St. Patrick's Day, whatever the hell it is, right? But we're not going to throw out the Magna Carta and the scientific method and the Bill of Rights just because of that, just because we like Taco Tuesday. That's not going to happen. We can do two things at the same time. So the melting pot holds. You can come here. I mean, music and food and different types of dress, and do it, culturally appropriate the hell out of your entire life. I have no problem doing it. In fact, I encourage it. But there is a reason that we are the most successful civilization in Earth's history. And, you look at the Anglosphere and the English-speaking world, in most cases, we're top dog. And the left doesn't like that, which is why Western Civ has to go. The cultural Marxists are after it, which is why the middle class has to go, because they know that you're not going to get a true Marxist revolution here if there's a middle class. So you have to break them so that we're all in bread lines waiting for Timmy Boy and Kamala, the desk jockey, to feed us. Give us our government check, or a turkey in every pot, an abortion in every pot, whatever the hell it is. That's what they want from us. They want us to just stand there and wait for them as their customers. They're obsessed with that. They want to control us. That's why you get $6 eggs and inflation. They don't care. The Inflation Reduction Act, look at these interest rates. No one can own a home, right? You got eggs, you got energy out the wazoo. People can't start businesses, right? They stopped the drilling. They redistributed the third world to, urban America and rural America, dumped them in people's front yards. This is to soak the middle class, to crush them, because that way we will need them more. They don't want you to rise on your own, right? They don't want you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Right.
So that's the second thing. Western Civ, the middle class. The third thing they can't stand, Brad, is the nuclear family. They can't stand it. They can't stand it for various reasons. One, it'll repopulate Western Civ. Two, they don't like breeders. They don't, because every one of these children and humans are carbon footprints that DiCaprio can't offset, right? John Kerry in his plane can't offset. And look, Black Lives Matter told us on their website, right next to the love letter to Hamas, that the nuclear family was a construct of white privilege and white supremacy, right? They told us. So it has to go. What they actually want is they want us all in our homes, unmarried, childless. We're going to bring some cats in from Ohio, right? We'll get some cats FedExed in from the Haitians in Ohio, the ones that escaped. And we're going to play Taylor Swift in the background. And they want us in our house, miserable, screaming about white privilege, screaming about the man, screaming
Yeah.
about patriarchy, screaming about Donald Trump or RFK Jr., screaming about conspiracy theories.
Well, and dependent, because they can only
That's
control
right.
us if we literally are contingent, our existence is contingent on them supplying our basic needs, which is communism, which never works. Well, here's the thing I wanted to sort of explore with you, because here's the deal, brother. You're a conservative guy. You said you're Catholic. I'm a Christian Christ follower, so that gives me the moral foundation as to how I see, which is, of course, is Western, Jerusalem and Greece, combining to figure out how this thing will work that we will call a republic. But the thing about it is, you and I can sit here and we can lament and we can joke and we can satirize and we can about this craziness that logic is white and racist and that math is racist. And it's all this is actually being said and done and inculcated into the academia so that you don't have to feel bad that you suck at your schoolwork because you don't have the courage to either learn or just find what you're good at and be good at that. No. You're a victim, and that means you get a special privilege, and that means you get special power. And we can say this all day long because we know it's true. But you know what? We're not really doing is accomplishing much, because all we're doing is stating the truth. And those of us who are those who are on the far left, they ain't watching my show. They're probably not reading your book. So they're gone. They are long gone. The cult has taken them. Kool-Aid's ingested. They're putting on their Nikes. They're getting in the bunk. But those in the middle that we were hoping, maybe, I guess, are so lazy that they didn't do the work to understand what was at stake so that they could defend it. Maybe that's who we're affected. So I'm trying to get an end game to this thing, because the hypocrisy in the whole thing is such a hypocrisy that it's hard to even waste time speaking about. But the driving force, of course, for Marx's ideas is power. Everybody's shooting for power. Well, here's the thing. If you destroy Western civilization, if you destroy capitalism and free enterprise and free agency and moral standards and a family that creates good citizens and a structure of virtue and self-governance, which is why the founders were so crucially telling you got to be religious because you're a republic. Your self-governance. I don't want a policeman on every corner with a bayonet making sure you're in line. You're going to do that by yourself. The freedom we are about to give you is so incredibly valuable and so like nitroglycerin. You're going to have to handle it gently, because you can let this go sideways, because we ain't going to be forcing this by a bayonet. And we did it. But the power that they say that the Western Judeo-Christian ethic has created, well, if they want to destruct it, if they want to deconstruct it and destroy it and eliminate it, they're going to rebuild it into their image, right? Which means
Correct.
they want the power now. Now,
Right.
if power is inherently suspect, why don't you become the new oppressor? And then who destroys you? So how do they justify their self-elected elite that we get to have power and lord over you, but we're okay, give it to us? In other words, what's the end game? Who are we fighting? Who's this enemy that we have to draw a line in the sand and say, there's no more time for wringing hands. We've got to do whatever is necessary to stop this nonsense now.
And that's why, although it sounds a little bit like a verbal dirty diaper, when you hear what can become unburdened by what has been, as much as that may sound like Kamala just blabbing, that's actually a stone cold Leninist Mao Zedong type statement. That is about resetting your family life, your diet, your politics, your culture. That's the goal. Yes, they want to rebuild us in their bleak image, right? Where you have the experts, the totalitarians at the top, and I mean, there's plenty of real life examples and sci-fi examples of this, where everyone gets a social credit score. And you are, you have to answer for everything you do on a daily basis to the regime. They want to get in all the nooks and crannies of your life. They don't like free will. They don't like personal responsibility. They want to sort of, and what has started to happen with the American people because of this totalitarianism has come onto us in the last decade in particular, the sort of consent of the governed and the suspension of disbelief where they overlap has started to fray. And you've got, regular grandmoms questioning everything, 9/11, JFK, you name it, okay, right? The World Economic Forum, some grandmother, sitting in the pew, oh, the World Economic Forum trying to take my house. I mean, you would never have heard that. So let me just say this. There are some what I call woke Waterloo moments. There's been some woke Waterloo moments that have happened. These are wins for us. Elon Musk becoming red-pilled and doing the biggest digital jailbreak of all time, allowing that information to flow. That's a huge woke Waterloo moment. Ricky Gervais standing up at the Golden Globes, goofing on that room full of deviants, Epstein, Weinstein, Diddy, Epstein, Weinstein, right? So, if he updated it, that's what it would sound like. I mean, he dropped the freaking anvil on them. Kid Rock and his AR-15 with the cases of Bud Light. These are moments that, the enemy gets checked. We give them some chin music. They back up, right? We shuffle their feet in the batter's box and they don't feel as confident. It's going on right now because although Crying Adam and Liz Cheney, who's really just Dick Cheney in drag and Adam Kinzinger, although they were looking for an insurrection that they couldn't find on January 6th, there is a true insurrection out there. I may have to disagree with you a little bit. It is not all lost, all right? It's maybe darkest before the dawn, but I'm telling you, we are in the majority. I don't care about skin color. I don't care about religious, affiliation. I mean, quite frankly, I'll remind the audience, before this October 7th thing happened, which was a tragedy, horrific, last year, there were meetings taking place all across the United States between the three Abrahamic religions to push back on wokeism, to push back on cultural Marxism in the public schools, in Michigan, in Minnesota, in Massachusetts, in Maryland, all these different places. And then that sort of frayed apart conveniently with what happened with Hamas and Israel, and it has stayed frayed. But there are uniting factors here. It can happen. I do believe that parents are the true rebellion, because I don't think regular people, even like morally good atheists, I don't think they want Gary and Tim in the women's locker room. I don't. And it's like, how far left do your politicians have to go before certain members of the media, outside of like Bill Maher and a few other people that will ding this, and Bill Maher is by no means a Trump lover, but he kind of understands that, tampon dispensers in the men's room is insane, right? Like how far will you go before enough is enough on this stuff? And that's why Kamala was signing documents about transgender surgeries for illegal aliens. I mean, like, what's your Waterloo moment? What's the final straw of craziness before you break? And I just think the regular folks out there, they have had it with this stuff. They have had it. They don't want it. They could barely afford anything. And, you got weird trans people in the public schools, and now you got illegal aliens being dumped in the ghetto, and it's just too much. So that's why I think you see Donald Trump in particular have the most diverse, working class, multi-ethnic, cross-party lines group of people following him that you've ever seen. So
sure.
Although they screamed white privilege and they screamed the patriarchy and all these things, but the reality is they did what did they do by screaming white privilege? They have brought together a coalition of people that looks like, the Benetton ad, that looks like the United Nations, except they're not following the left. They are following Trump, populism, RFK Jr., Libertarianism, that's what they're following. Get the hell out of my life and just get out of my way and make it easier for me to own a home or get married. I mean, I believe happy people have more children. So trickle down wokeism is trickle down misery. You pop on Taylor Swift and you're miserable, right? You're miserable. And that's what they want. That's what they want. They don't want us to be able to afford a home or have children, right? So I'm a millennial. I'm a geriatric millennial, but I'm a millennial. And, unless you come from a lot of, this is what I'm told, that it's expensive to get married now. Now, it wasn't expensive to get married in the Old Testament, but we live in different times, and COVID put stuff off and pushed stuff off, and there's just a lot of things that the children born from 1980 till now are having a hard time doing, and I think that's by design.
Yeah. Well, but you know what though? Here's the other challenge though. I mean, like I said, what you say, of course, I am in agreement. And I do believe that the sheer numbers of more conservative, patriotic leaning, traditional values, I do believe we have the numbers. I do. If you look, I've traveled throughout this nation doing comedy, and from California to, wherever, where it's very blue. But every one of those states have huge conservative pockets. They're just outvoted by the LA County or the Bay Area. It just is. They can't fix that. They're just have the numbers. But here's the other thing, though. We no longer believe, or at least feel confident, that we can vote anymore. We don't even because the easy go-to was, well, we'll vote them out. Well, not if you can't vote. If that's true, and I think most of us believe that it was in fact stolen in 2020. I think the governorship in Arizona was stolen from here. The moment her opponent said, "I'm not going to debate you," I said, "She's going to steal it," because this is what they did this is what Biden did. This is how the game works. Is once they tell you, "I'm not going," like Kamala right now, if I'm not going to engage, it's because we're about to steal it. Don't need the engagement. That's how I feel.
Sure.
I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Maybe there'll be more poll watchers this time. Maybe there'll be more scrutiny this time. Maybe they had their window and they grabbed it while the getting was good and it won't happen again. I don't know. But I know this. If I can't vote, don't matter what I believe in. I'm not going to win. Number two, we have a Second Amendment. What was it given to us for a regime such as this? If it becomes totalitarian, if it becomes fascist, basically, when the control of all the entities, the dissemination of information, the academia, where your kids are going to be raised and making the next generation, if it's all control, the bells and the whistles of Hollywood and how we entertain ourselves, the corporations where we are allowed to have a cell phone and things, are all controlled by one group, you don't exist anymore. It is totalitarian. It is despotic. They did it. I can sit here and I can sit here with this race car, Formula One race car, ready to roll, and show them that what we're going to fight for. But if they have my keys and they're the ones that have my fuel, I can't do anything with this. I couldn't start a militia if I wanted to. How would I do that? You can't do. I live in Nashville. And as a comic and a conservative comic, when I destroyed my mainstream career by coming out as a Christian conservative, it's easy to go, well, don't worry, boys, we got the Second Amendment, ha ha, woo, and aren't we great? But if you think about it, it's not. If you really think about it existentially, soberly, this is a big deal. You would need a militia would mean we know who's gathering, who's the general, who's in charge, where's the triage when we get hurt, who are we going after, where are we going to keep these people? If you're going to war, it takes a lot of pieces of a puzzle to know what you're doing. And obviously, I don't want a civil war. Nobody does. But what we can't escape from is the Second Amendment was for a time such as this, that you at least can defend yourself, but not without communication, not without a game plan. So my point is, even our plan B, I don't know is practical. I don't know how you would do it. When guys like you and I are staring at each other going, aren't we all fed up with this? And we're all going, yes, we are. Then what do I do? Right. Okay, how do I fix it now? That's what I want to get from you.
And,
okay.
Right.
So they're taking over, huh? They're controlling it all, huh? These people want to
Sure.
control the world with oligarchy. I mean, freaking Bill Gates tells me I got to eat bugs now because he's so rich. He's got nothing left to do but to take over the world. And that's not hyperbole. These guys have made so much money. They think the last thing I have to do, can't make any more money, can't make any more computers. How about if I just start ruling the world? And that's
Right.
what they're trying to do. So again, forgive my exasperation of frustration, but I don't need you to tell me what is true about what's happening or what we believe is got the ethical high ground. How do we do this to change it and take it back? How do we do it?
I don't really see us as a civil war type of place. As long as I can get, Netflix and a pizza delivered in 5 minutes with Uber Eats, I don't. That's not really a civil war type of place. I will say most of our military comes from Benton, Arkansas, and Toledo, Ohio, and Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Maybe unless
Oh,
they
no, it
weeded
does.
them all, unless they weeded them all out when they refused
No,
to take
they
the.
wouldn't have. Well, I mean, the stand down order is ready to go. I think that there is a civil war going on inside of the deep state, and it is real. I'm in D.C. I'm a subterranean homesick alien down here in the swamp, in the sewers below the swamp. It's actually cleaner down here than up there on K Street. And I will tell you that that is true. That some of the command and control, the wackos at the Pentagon or like the Joint Chiefs of Staff or maybe the head of the CIA, FBI, they're all company men. But the idea, I mean, every time Biden has made a mistake with the military, we get immediate whistleblowers. Immediate. So whether it's the Afghanistan debacle or people that are protesting, gender reassignment surgeries, for Air Force pilots, we immediately have people out of the woodwork. So,
But there's no repercussions. But there's no repercussions. I agree with that. But then when the DOJ doesn't go and indict anybody, when nobody has to suffer for what they've done, they're not going to stop.
I will tell you this. If 2020 was a dress rehearsal on stealing elections, and it might have been, if they try to steal it again, they're not just going to be stealing it from two honkies like you and I. They're going to be stealing it from every Latin American under the age of 50 in the United States. All the Muslims in Michigan, Jewish voters in Boca from Florida to Pennsylvania, African Americans from the Carolinas to Georgia to Dallas to Indiana to Charlotte. That's what they're going to be stealing it from. Way more people than the perceived evil ultra MAGA whitey that they stole it from last time. So they're going to have to really examine what they're playing with here, because it's not going to be, the guy with the QAnon shaman that they're stealing it from. They're going to be stealing it from some single black mom who's got 1 million Salvadorans dumped in her front yard. And so we will judge them on that. And look, America, I will say this. Donald Trump is kind of like white blood cells flying towards an infection. Okay? And America does have a unique ability to cough up panaceas for us from time to time. I will say that even if Trump doesn't win again, the damage is done. This is why you've had 4 phony indictments and 2 phony impeachments and 2 assassins on the field. Because Trump has become a counterculture icon for all time. Reagan, Tupac, Jesse James, right? Brad Stein. Point is, there's no going back. So the left, to get to us, they have to go to him. Because, look, when Reagan won, and he won 49 states in 84, for 30 years, people called themselves Reagan Republicans, Reagan conservatives. There's some kid right now, as we sit here, that's bussing tables in Madison, Wisconsin, that's going to be calling himself a Trump Republican for 30 years. The waves of Trumps are coming. The waves. So you're right now, the current Trump that you all think is a threat to democracy, Buckle up, ladies and gentlemen. That's the most moderate version of Trump you're ever going to get, because the waves that are coming, mark my words, they are going to scare the hell out of you. And it's not just the Gateses and the MTGs and the Kari Lakes and so on. There are 20-somethings right now preparing to show up. Okay? He got more votes than any Republican in history. And somehow the basement dweller got more votes. More than Obama, more than Bill Clinton. Sure. So if you're going to steal it, right, buckle up. You're going to be stealing it from a multi-ethnic coalition. And you're going to be seeing Hispanic Trump, Black Trump, female Trump for decades, right? And I'm not talking J.D. Vance. I'm talking 22-year-olds right now that are involved in this. The bros that are protecting the statues on, UNC's campus that you saw, right? That's what you're going to get. So that gives me hope. So yeah, in the second act, right, the bad guys win like an Empire Strikes Back, but the third act is coming, and hopefully we can clear the field and win this thing.
Another major hurdle would be if they took the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They're going to stack the court. That's what they've said, certainly made it appear that they were interested in doing. And that's a rubber stamp. From then on, Congress makes any law they want, any anti-religious liberty law. The new Supreme Court rubber stamps it. And the rights to even protest, to get together in unity and begin to fight these things become even more dynamic, difficult, deadly. Now, listen, people that have been under that type of oppression oftentimes win because they become dug in. Okay, we're in war. This is how it works. Some of us are going to perish, but let's fight till the end. And that's how this nation started. We just forgot who we were. I appreciate, your optimism. It helps because it can get hard to just not be completely jaded and basically give up, because again, when the system that allows you to vote out the bad guy or to do or to remember God and country and start remembering our history and everything is removed, you start thinking maybe there's nowhere to go back because we've lost our way. We don't even have a template anymore. Even the Constitution, I just saw that article that came out. Our founding document might be our problem. And now they're starting to say that when they've moved to the Constitution, perhaps that needs to be which they started doing when they said it was a living, breathing document. That's when they started turning it no longer into immutable. I want people to see your book, the White Privilege album, because it is more focused. Things we've been talking about is sort of the meta narrative, but yours is focused kind of on that particular odd whiteness, white privilege trope that was designed to destroy. I don't even understand what whiteness means, because there is no such thing as white. Well, we got to dismantle whiteness. Well, whiteness has never done anything. Whiteness has never voted for anything. Whiteness has never created anything. If you're talking about people, European people, that's what you're really referencing. Yeah, we had a philosophy, Magna Carta, and and ending slavery, and the Constitution and the Declaration, and natural law. Yeah, we had theories and ideas that ended up panning out, where I haven't seen a communist state yet that we can say, wow, they finally found utopia. So I don't even know what you do when they've abandoned wisdom. But if you were going to summarize for people watching me right now, your book, The White Privilege album, and it's long, and they're going to have to read it, and it is a easy read and very informative. But if you were to kind of give us an idea of what is your book there for people to gather and walk away with when they read it, what were you really trying to distill in this for people to be more informed and more educated and hopefully wiser when they're finished reading it?
First of all, I'd like to apologize to the Beatles, not to Yoko, but to the Beatles for the the White Privilege album.
Yes.
And I would also like to remind people that you can come here if you come here legally, and you can participate in the nuclear family and the middle class and Western civilization, and be part of this great experiment that it doesn't have a color. So my goal was to use absurdity to illustrate truth. I write the way I talk. I basically outlined the book as 12 chapters from January to December, right? The 12 months of privilege. And I go through all of our traditions and I pick them apart. But in the subtitle, I talk about bringing racial harmony, because I truly believe that if you use absurdity and you have a little fun, and I'm trying to reach a certain demographic, obviously, with the book, I'm not here to be Victor Davis Hanson. I mean, Victor does his thing and we need Victor. But just like the American Revolution, where you needed Sam Adams just as much as you needed John Adams, the reality is that, I am trying to bring information using humor to, get some of the millennials and Gen Z to, in particular, sort of examine how absurd some of this. The left talks about, bending the arc of history towards justice. Well, I'm trying to bend the arc of history away from wokeness. And I think sports and other things can bring us together and recreate that American meeting house where, we're a couple guys on the couch and we're watching the Super Bowl or we're watching this and that. And every single little thing in our life, down to the minutia, isn't dripping with wokeness or political correctness. That we can, be together as Americans and not as all these little, sushi menu boxes the left is trying to put us through all the time with identity. So, look, I try to have some fun. It's a little different than some conservatives. My day job is a little more serious. We like to think of ourselves at the center of the MAGA cinematic universe here. We're trying to win an election, and we're trying to move the culture away from cultural Marxism. And look, have some fun along the way. The book is available anywhere books are sold: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. And try to just sort of put a smile on your face, and help educate.
Well, and it does, and it does a great job doing. I've read lots of books, philosophical books and so forth, that are a little bit drier or whatever, because I'm just getting information. But so it's fun when you get one that still has good information, but it's easier to read, so you can kind of not check out like, God, I got to think about this before I move to the next page. It did a great job. I think an inherent challenge that the left did well was by making everything about race. It became so sensitive and so volatile potentially, because suddenly you believe that if you happen to be white, and it's weird. I've been white my whole life, right? I never looked at an invention of the Wright brother, a plane, a rocket, a computer, and said, well, the white guys are at it again, huh? Are you kidding me? I've never stopped and said, well, chalk up another one for the white one. Boy, right. We invent everything, don't we? I never considered it.
In some ways, they have forced us to kind of go here, from Henry Ford to the Wright brothers to what Marconi, whatever it is.
Right.
It's because, but they forced that on us. We don't wake up in the morning and they'll say, oh, it's because you have power. But we don't wake up in the morning and filter all of existence through identity like that.
No. Right. And here's the thing. Here's what's interesting. It's almost like, well, it has to be the Judeo-Christian ethic, because it's the only belief system in human history that launched the idea that we're all made in God's image. So we're all equal. That's the only religion that actually did that. So it started everything: civil rights movement, social justice movement, take care of the babies, take care of the women, take care of the people. There shouldn't be slaves. All came from Judeo-Christian, because it's true.
Correct.
And it's the reality of life. It's how God made the world. But, I just saw it as a human accomplishment. Like, if I was to watch a movie, let's say, they've regressed so much with their idiotic cudgel of trying to demand us all accept their perspective. If I saw Sidney Poitier in a movie, I'd say, oh, I like him. If I saw what's his name, the guy in Shawshank.
Denzel.
You know who I'm talking about.
Morgan Freeman, Denzel.
Yeah, Morgan Freeman. I like Morgan Freeman. If anybody like that, I would just simply say, oh, I like them, and watch the movie. I didn't care. I didn't even put them in a category. I like them. And then suddenly, everything I know, every time I turn around, It's the black lead, the black girl, the black thing, the black deal, the black deal, and the black, until what I saying, now you've caused me to lose interest because it's contrived. When it was just by guys being good at what they did, I'm just an actor, take me or leave me, but my color's irrelevant, happens to come with the package. I accepted it on that term. You're really good at this, love you. But I don't care what you're shoving down my throat. I don't care if from now on it's just fat white people. I don't want to watch it. If you're trying to demand that I succumb to your perspective of how I need to get in line with the new pseudo moral structure, it's a turnoff to me. They're gonna take, like you said, immigrants and give them sex change operations. They've neutered them. They're going backwards. Now they can't make new ones to keep with you. Everything, Dennis Prager said it first. Everything the left touches, they destroy. They are cancer. They are nothing but parasites. They build nothing. They create nothing. They engineer nothing. They deconstruct like they did something fabulous. A 4-year-old with a hammer can deconstruct. You don't have to have cognizant to deconstruct, but it takes an artist to create. It takes an architect to build, and they have none of that. They suck all the good out of the free nation they live in, leave this dead, empty husk, and act like things are still running smooth. Right. Well, AJ, it's been incredible to just listen to your thoughts, your ideas. I'm grateful to know that there are warriors fighting the good fight. Get the White Privilege album, folks, from AJ Rice. Give my people that are watching and listening throughout the world, believe it or not, some hope for being a conservative, being Christian, and again, these words that are about to come out of my mouth are uncomfortable, but I don't know how else to frame it. White, there's nothing wrong with white because it doesn't really exist. There's never been about a color. It's about a philosophy. Right. How do you live your life? Who are you as a human? Give us a way to navigate this conversation with people of different hues and really get it back to what we need to focus on so we can actually have civil and important conversations and try to actually dignify each other. That's a lot to summarize, but I'm sure you can do it. Be my guest. Hey guys, I'm interrupting my own interview. If you want the answer that you haven't heard yet, go to bradstein.com and join one of the 3 tiers. It is the militia of the mind, it is the warrior level, or it is the special forces. And then you'll get all kinds of special content and bonus answers to make you smarter than you could ever imagine. Go there now, jump on and join the mighty 10,000. Anything great in human history never came without a cost. Anything worth hanging on to was despised by someone who wanted what you have. The Judeo-Christian ethic of not to covet what others have, not to steal what others have, to believe in God, something greater than yourself, so you bow the knee, so that you are in equality with all humanity, to honor your parents, the unit of the family that God instilled, so that we were not only part of a community, but also a small, tiny micro community that took care of ourselves individually, as well as the meta culture that we are obligated to procreate, to be little, to be less than God. Clearly, he's the creator, but he said, "I've given you an earth, honor it. Go see what you can take with the minerals and the things, the resources I've given you. See what you can create. Look at what I've created. Try to do the best you can. Make new people." I mean, there's a reason why the Western culture has created more freedom, more egalitarianism, more people of ethnicities and different ways and histories to have freedom and food and clothing and a house, things that were literally unheard of for most of humanity. Folks, the reason they hate what we have is because it's anointed. It's God breathed. We are fighting the enemy of lies. And that's why if they ever come to you and say you're being politically incorrect, I tell you, always say, thank you for the compliment, because it means you're a free agent and you love to be autonomous. Folks, yes, you have an obligation to your neighbor to be kind, but you do not have an obligation ever to lower your morality, your belief systems and to self-censor to make somebody comfortable. Never do that. Always fight for truth. Speak it in the marketplace. If you're inspired by my comedy, I'm glad. But if you aren't doing it in your sphere of influence, we cannot win. It has to be people like AJ and me and you and the fireman and the guy at the mechanic working together, because we've been abandoned by DC. It's going to take another peasants' revolt to restore this country. And hey, we've done it before. Let's do it again. It's your turn to be a warrior. This is God's comic Brad Stein. Brad Stein has issues doing what I do, which is what? Putting the woke back to sleep. See you next Monday.